Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to this interaction between CII and ISAS. Let me welcome all of you. We have always, we have this tradition, always meeting CII in a crowded room. And this time it's the same. There's always a lot of people who want to listen to CII. I don't want to make a long speech because we have 6 speakers and the whole group has to leave by 12:15. But let me recognize a few people. Professor Tommy Cole, High Commissioner from Pakistan. Then of course our guests, the CII core group. I welcome them most heartily. And some of them are great friends who have been here very often. Like Mr. Kumar, Mr. Tanzani. All these people are well known. Mr. Batra Saturday, he knows Singapore better than I do. Instead of going through the various, the motion of, going through statistics and so on, to say how the relationship has grown, what I want to do is focus on a small point, which is, I think, very important. Singapore-India relations is very strong, and it has been growing very, very rapidly in various areas. But something that happened about a week to 10 days ago is of particular significance. Indian companies come to Singapore to use it as a base to look at rest of Southeast Asia or even further afield like Australia and so on. But very seldom doing anything very significant in Singapore. Singapore companies that go to India, most of them are either TLCs or GLCs. The SMEs are very few, and they are sort of overawed by the Indian situation, and they don't do too much. But there is an opportunity now of possible deeper collaboration between Indian companies and Singapore. The Monetary Authority of Singapore, just about a week, 10 days ago, announced certain very revolutionary measures in making credit or making funds available to SMEs. The amount of money is a little mind-boggling. The total amount of money that would be available would be in excess of 500 million Sing dollars. And this is can be lent non-collateralized. No collateral is needed. In the old rule, for non-collateral lending, the amount was restricted to $5,000. You can't buy a motorbike with it. But now it has been increased. 4 groups of people who will benefit. The Singapore companies, SMEs, the startups, the VCs, and the finance companies. Because this money will be channeled to the VCs and the finance companies. People like Ravi should look at this. He's a very creative banker. And if you look at this seriously, what can be done out of Singapore with Indian companies? Because this money is also available for joint venture. And I think this money is also available for the joint ventures to look outside Singapore. Singapore is a high-cost economy, and therefore when you talk about manufacturing and so on, it's going to be very difficult. Services, possible. But you need to look at it. All I wanted to say was that this is really a game changer. Our friend, what's his name, Vikram Khanna, wrote in the Business Times, Ravi Balu was here, his colleague, and he said this, that it is a game changer. I think it would be, but the details will be flushed out by July this year. So I think please look at this and see how this can be used for Singapore and Indian company to collaborate, to look at investments here, investments elsewhere, and so on. So this is the only message I had before I turn to the speakers. We have 6 very distinguished speakers. The CII side is led by, of course, the chairman, Mr. Naushad Fox, a well-known family in Bombay. You can see the write-up, I don't want to go through that. And of course, Mr. M. Kumar, who needs no introduction in Singapore. He's another person who knows Singapore very well. Then, of course, Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee, who has always been dealing with us. On our side, because ISAS doesn't have the depth of talent, we decided to bring somebody from outside, Ambassador Hong from RSIS, and he kindly agreed, very promptly agreed, and I was very happy. Then we have Sanjeev Iyer, another outsider, who is the head of the IIM chapter in Singapore, the biggest of the foreign chapters, and then, of course, Professor Mitra, our own director. So with that, let me first start with Dr. Forbes. Each one will have about 6 to 7 minutes, and then we will have question and answers, because they must leave. My timekeeper is here. He says they must leave by 1:15. Sure, sorry, 12:15. Because the hosts want to hear the Singapore budget speech, so they won't have it. So it will be a rush job. We won't get too much about it, So okay. So Dr. Forbes. Oh, sorry.
Thank you very much, Ambassador Pillai, for that, for those kind comments and the interesting suggestion that you made. I think there's great potential in it for us to take forward. Ladies and gentlemen, it's a great pleasure to be here with you, not only in Singapore, but at NUS and on the NUS campus. NUS has long been, to me, one of the great examples of institution building in the world in the last 50 years, where to create, many countries aspire to create world-class institutions. Very few actually succeed. And I think Singapore's success in creating not just one world-class institute, but now increasingly, I think, 3 world-class institutes is truly exemplary, and it's a pleasure to be here. It's also a pleasure to be in a room with 3 such distinguished illustrations of a distinctly Singaporean institution, which is the institution of the ambassador at large. I think it's the creation of a role which is quite unique to Singapore, and I think it's an illustration of how one can tap into people who have dedicated their lives to public work and have really played a leadership and intellectually leading position and continue to contribute to society. I think it's something for us in the world to learn from.
No salary though.
Sorry, that's the beauty of it from the country perspective. So let me make some comments in the broader context of the India-Singapore relationship. I won't talk about the great complementarity of interests that we have. I mean, you're all, especially in this room, familiar with the elements that make India what India is and Singapore what Singapore is. But I'll just point out one element of that characteristic of India, which I think is something that we need to use as an opportunity to deepen our relationship, whether it's a political relationship, a strategic relationship, or an economic relationship. India is, as you know, a hugely diverse country. As a hugely diverse country, we are prone to talking with all voices at once. India does not, if you ever talk about, what does India stand for? What is India's view on a particular topic? You will not hear one thing. It depends on who you speak to, and sometimes it depends on who you speak to on which day. So you will hear many voices that represent India, and I think this is the richness of India. This is the strength of India. This diversity of opinion, this diversity of view is what makes us who we are. Given that, I think we need to recognize that the inherent strengths of India take India forward month after month, but it may not take India forward in a systematic, planned, organized, clearly articulated way. So I think listening to what's happening in India, but then picking out the broader trends from all the noise that one hears, and then identifying what are those key features that one can really build a solid, strong, deep relationship on, I think is the essence of building a durable, strong relationship with India. So with that context, let me talk about one thing and one thing alone in terms of the potential of our relationship. If you look at India's economic success, our economic success, and especially our economic success as a trading nation, has been quite significant in recent years. Few people realize that today, India is more dependent on trade than China. India's imports plus exports as a proportion of GDP are now higher than China's. About 60% of India's GDP is imports plus exports. That pales in comparison with Singapore, which is the world leader, I think, in exports and imports as a proportion of GDP at what, 400% or something. So that pales with Singapore's experience. But I think Singapore is the extreme outlier when it comes to globalization and integration with global markets. If you look though at where India's imports and exports come from, we play strongly at both ends of the sophistication spectrum. We play very strongly at the capital-intensive, skill-intensive end. You are all very familiar with our vibrant and strong technology exports, our exports of sophisticated pharmaceutical products, our exports of engineering services, our exports, of course, of IT and IT-enabled services. But we play also strongly at the extreme low value-added end. Iron ore, bulk commodities, agricultural products, and a range of items which are quite low value-added. We play relatively insignificantly in the middle. And that's where the potential for employing millions of Indians in our growth process comes. That's where the involvement of, that's where this whole inclusion ambition that we have in India really arises. And that's where it seems to me the greatest potential for collaboration between Singapore and India lies. How can Singapore help us play more strongly and actively in the middle ground, in the areas where we move up the value chain from commodities, and where we use our own technical strengths, but scale those technical strengths and apply them to, again, this whole process of inclusion of many more millions of Indians in the entire growth process. Now, that's the broad context, if you like. I think there are areas of potential collaboration in areas of R&D and investments in innovation, which we're going to talk about in much more detail in our interaction with the Singapore Business Federation this afternoon. But I think there are areas within R&D and innovation that we can certainly do a lot. There are lots of collaborations that are possible in terms of intellectual leadership of institution building, which Singapore has great experience in. Whether it's experience around the entire water management program, and we'll talk about that more. I think Chandrajit will talk about that too. We have potential collaborations with higher education, and being on the NUS campus, I think, is a great opportunity to take some of those institutional collaborations forward, whether it's institution-to-institution collaboration, or whether it's institution-to-industry collaboration, but there are opportunities in both. But I think this broader question of how can Singapore help India play more strongly, efficiently, effectively in the entire middle ground that lies between low-end commodities and high-end pure technical services. I think there's great potential if we can work in some of those areas. So I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Kumar.
Thank you, Gopi. I think President Naushad has covered almost everything. But to sit in a room with Keng Yong, Gopi and Tommy here, very little that we can talk about India, Singapore afresh. Because I think these are people who have really done both the government and the private part, and one of the most successful businesses globally, so I can keep on going on this issue. But just, rather than, as President said, rather than going around the area, we've been partners, CII directly for 25 years now. It's a landmark partnership that CII and Singapore work together. And if I look at one area which is not happening, we were involved in SICA process, we were in all the process working. But I think it's the implementation of the plans, because I don't think there are any two countries better in people to people, government to government, and company to company relationships than India and Singapore. I think we are an ideal match. I think we've done a lot of things together. We've not made the big stage. So that is the issue which, if I need to talk in an area like this, look at ideas, how we can implement. And I think what Gopi said today about this $500 million credit to SMEs. So 60 to 70% of our membership in CII is SMEs. And I think that is where we've been struggling to say, what can we do together to make it happen? I think we need signature projects which are happening. The skills project is working well, and that is something which I think India worked with Singapore to make it happen. I think the other new initiative was, as I said, SICA earlier. And many companies in India are in Singapore. One, the Tatas are here, so they've done very well earlier. But even smaller companies, I'm involved in a company which is very involved here. People are using Singapore as a buying base, as a selling base. So I think there's a lot of activity going on below. As President said, we need to cut the noise and make the sound heard properly. And I think that's the duty of CII in this area, to work on a strategy which will make this partnership, which is very strong foundation, build to a larger base. And that is a responsibility, I think, for CII and our leadership to work on, all of us who are on this side. Because I don't think we can get a better partner than Singapore. And Singapore equally can't get a better partner than India, because the trust of Indians about Singapore is huge. Somebody was saying yesterday that 25 years ago people came to Singapore to go to the US, but people now go to the US to come to Singapore. I think the whole world has changed. I think Singapore has taken its place as a leader in the world. And I think India should take advantage and Singapore should take advantage, because both of us have the opposite strengths. We have people in abundance. I think Singapore doesn't have enough people. I think we need to. I think there are solutions. I think it's important for people from CII and the Singapore government to work on this area to make it happen. I'm not going to say more because, as I said, I think in the interactive section a lot more will come. I'm delighted to be here. As President said, Gopi inviting me, thank you. Keng Yong, of course, High Commissioner of many years, Tomiko, I can keep on going. I think this room has so much IQ that I think we need to find a solution. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Pillai. I just also wanted to reiterate that this CII as an institution has evolved over the last, it's a 121-year-old institution, but as Mr. Kumar was talking about the last 25 years, the last 25, 30 years has been the critical evolution, if one can say, of CII, and much of it is actually attributed to Singapore. And we have, in fact, it's good to share that the structuring of CII was based on certain inputs that we have received from Singapore. So all of you, I mean, especially three of you who are present here, Ambassador Tomiko, Ambassador Keng Yong and Ambassador Pillai, all of you have contributed not just to India, which you have, but definitely for us as an institution to grow, and we really value this phenomenal relationship that which has grown over the years. Before I say a couple of points, I'd just like to actually give a flavor of the people who are in this room from India and the delegation which has come in. And if you start with Rajan Lavani, who actually also works within CII besides his own business that should be his primary responsibility, which it isn't, is on looking at India at 75, when India becomes 75. And he's got a strong team within CII which looks at it. He's himself involved into digital. And he's not a new face in the core group. Then Zia Modi. Zia is, of course, a renowned lawyer in India. And we are glad that she's got strong business interests, strong interest in the ASEAN region, especially Singapore. And we are glad that she is a new entrant into this core group. So we are very happy have that. Sanjay, again, Sanjay Kirloskar, the Kirloskar pumps, and the pumps are known as Kirloskars in Africa. So they don't call it's like the Xerox. So that they and Sanjay is himself very also strong in the ASEAN region. Works in Singapore. Operates has an investment, strong investments in Thailand. But of course, looking into here, Ravi Parthasarathy, you know, we talked about him, and he is actually leading one of the most important missions. Well, whether it is working or not is a matter of debate, but he is leading on behalf of CII the entire venture on smart cities, and so that's something which, of course, we would really like to talk about. Mukund Rajan, I really don't need to introduce him much, comes from the house of Tatas, and therefore well-known, varied interest, and Mukund has been involved in CII in many areas, including the work of, in the areas of CSR. So young face getting involved in CSR issues, and also many other new issues and youth issues is something that we really value, and Mukund is also another new face into this core group. And last of all, I must introduce Sanjay. And now Sanjay is one of the fintech startups, and that's something which is very interesting addition to our group, Sanjay Kapoor. So this is the group that we have gotten. So the blend that we wanted to do was to keep the people who have been engaged in this relationship for long to be there, and also to bring in a few new faces. I just wanted to say that so that during the Q&A session, we know what to talk about with this particular group. Just a couple of points, you know, from the India perspective, if one can add on to what was mentioned by both Mr. Kumar and the President. Today, in a very different India than what India was, say, about 3 years back, and there are a whole lot of, one sees, you know, there was a new energy which came a couple of years back. Many missions were announced, many opportunities were announced. There was a new sort of an energy which came up within India, and the world started looking at India very differently. The challenge, however, at this point in time is to sustain that focus on India, to sustain that energy, and to see these opportunities really get actualized. So some of it can be well criticized as to whether we have been able to move along, be it, we talked about smart cities, the Prime Minister talked about Make in India. So, but there are lots of challenges on the ground. So India is coming up with big tickets, reforms agendas. But those agendas to be translated into action is something that India has been constantly in the past and present, especially now, because the agenda issues seems to have become much larger for us to manage and for us to really realize. But strongly from CII, we believe that though we might have been slipping in some of these areas, be it the smart cities and Make in India and what have you, but this is one window of opportunity that India has, and we do not want to lose that opportunity, because we feel that if we lose this opportunity, we'll be gone by another 60 years. So something that, so therefore, we need to make it happen. And given the global dynamics, one of the things that India is really looking at is, Ambassador Pillai and I were a few days back into ISAC, and we were talking about regional collaboration and collaboration within South Asia and Southeast Asia with India. And India is looking forward to that type of partnership. And it is in that context of partnerships in the region, especially in the ASEAN, I think Singapore stands a completely outstanding relationship where it can contribute. And my thought is that we shouldn't look just for collaborating in these missions that come out, like say Make in India. But I would like to say within Make in India, we should select how we can select one piece of Make in India manufacturing. India has to come into manufacturing, and we can look at even at Singapore when we and you mentioned it from the small and medium enterprise perspective. But today, what we need, say for instance, within manufacturing, areas where we have slipped, and I'll take one example. Let's say, for instance, electronic hardware is one specific opportunity, and there is where the SMEs can play a major role, and Singapore can again play a major role, especially when we look into partnership on advanced manufacturing systems, and that's what India requires. Secondly, we can't look at this entire piece of smart cities, but if we can break it up into, say, for instance, urban solutions, and look at certain pieces around it, we would be able to make a lot of headway, be it in transport and logistics, where Singapore again has strengths. So we need to look at the missions at large, but then look at specific opportunities which are coming out of those projects, which we have not been able to probably gain so far. One area which Naushad mentioned that I would speak about is water. That's a huge challenge for India, which is going to come up over a period of time. And today we are slowly seeing realization of the water piece coming up in India, be it municipality level, be it at the company level, farm level, be it at the district level. We are seeing the members of parliament getting interested in seeing their districts being made water positive. There is no other country which can collaborate with India better in making India a sort of not a water surplus, but a water sufficient country. And that's a huge struggle for India. And I think if we can, and as an institution from CII, work towards such projects, we will be able to really bring in a lot more. The other piece, which I would like to conclude with that, is this piece on skilling. While there are good examples of Delhi and Udaipur, we are missing out on relevant skilling. While at one way we are talking about Industry 4.0, advanced manufacturing, we are talking about the services sector, which is going to be really providing from where jobs are going to come from. Sometimes we seem to be chasing a wrong horse, saying that jobs will only come from manufacturing. I think jobs have been coming from services sector. And in that, we are losing that piece of the jobs for the future and skilling for the future in India. And I think there is where Singapore can make a huge contribution and a strong impression on what are those new areas of skilling. And there also, we would like to see Singapore and India, and that's an opportunity area where we can work together to look at new ideas for on the skilling front. I'll stop there, Ambassador.
Turn to the Singapore side. Ambassador Ong Keng Yong, former Ambassador, High Commissioner of Singapore in India, and now running ISAS-CII.
I just rearranged furniture over there. Well, thank you, Chairman. First of all, I also want to acknowledge the presence of two European ambassadors, Belgium and Ukraine. Thank you for joining us on this discussion of Singapore and India. I was told that the topic is Singapore-India or India-Singapore relation in a changing global scenario. So since you say I'm now running RSIS, I have to take the academic approach. First of all, in this changing global scenario, there is the geopolitics, and secondly, there is the geoeconomics. In terms of geopolitics, basic problem we are going to confront in our part of the world, particularly with regard to Singapore's foreign policy, will be basically the big contestation between China and the USA. And in the case of ASEAN, our main challenge today is how do we in ASEAN maneuver a course through this issue of South China Sea and China's intensified positioning on various issues with regard to Southeast Asia, with regard to East Asia. So over here we see some opportunities. In the overall scheme of things, the contestation between US and China will definitely eventually go into Indian Ocean. So what do we do in Indian Ocean to prevent ourselves from getting involved in having to take sides or having to do certain things which will maintain our balanced position, not just for Singapore or ASEAN, but also for India. And we read about interests of China going into Indian Ocean to Europe, either by the maritime route or by the sea route. So this OBOR, One Belt, One Road, initiative enunciated by the Chinese leadership seems to be gaining a lot of substantive momentum in recent months. I think in this respect, Singapore and India, we can work together instead of looking at this Chinese entry into Indian Ocean or the Central Asian region. which is actually traditionally a very important part of India's marketplace. How can we work together, Singapore and India, to take advantage of some of these One Belt, One Road initiatives? At the moment, we look at it almost like a zero-sum game. India and China and USA, but it should not be the case. It need not be the case. I think we can do something together. In this case, Singapore, we are also looking at expanding our marketplace into East Africa, where possible, Central Asia, but it's a bit more difficult with regard to Central Asia since we don't speak Russians. But East Africa, there are opportunities. Tanzania, Uganda, Kenya, all the way down to even Southern Africa, South Africa, Mozambique. Although they speak a lot of Portuguese, but I think we can manage because they are also interested in speaking in English. So we can do more in these areas. India is traditionally strong in East Africa, in Southern Africa. So how can Singapore work with the Indian side to develop business opportunity, open up the market? Ambassador Pillay mentioned about this initiative by the Monetary Authority of Singapore. It's part of the ASEAN development plan for helping the ASEAN SMEs. The ASEAN SMEs, we have a new strategic action plan for the period 2016 to 2025. And one of the key issues identified in that ASEAN strategic action plan is how do we provide access to finance and international market for SMEs. And one of the major issues identified is that almost all the ASEAN countries will have rules regarding provision of loans to SMEs, and most SME cannot provide the necessary collateral for many of these borrowing. So this idea that the Monetary Authority of Singapore has initiated, I think is the beginning of opening up more opportunity for SMEs to access the financial market. And in this respect, it's good for India and Singapore because, as we heard just now, many Indian companies are actually SMEs. In Singapore, we don't have a big group of SMEs, but they are also very important, and we expect them to move more intensively into South Asia, Africa, and even hopefully Central Asia. So going forward, I think we can definitely do more in this area. The other dimension is that in geopolitical terms, the debate is going to go on forever about what do people do in Indian Ocean. But I think we should be the first mover to advocate more cooperation. India is familiar with Indian Ocean much more than anybody else. But Singapore, we are willing to work in various areas, including provision of capital, provision of skills, and working on various new digitization ideas. So I'm sure we can have a good partnership in that respect, and we don't have to always look at the geopolitical development as a zero-sum game. In terms of economics, I think the Indian technology and digitization process and first mover advantage in various subsectors are well known. So Singapore, we can also maybe work with Indian companies to do more. And actually, we have to start gearing our population to the reality of a digitized world. Very few people understand the danger caused by digitization, especially 3D printing and human cloud work for our manufacturing industries. Nowadays, you don't even have to have what you call in Singapore, we have a lot of companies called stockists. They stock spare parts, they stock all kind of things. And then when I need a big nozzle to use for putting what they call petroleum into a jet engine, I need a certain parts, I go to this stockist to get the parts. So you have to have a warehouse, you have to have very good logistical provision. In case you don't have the stock, you can make a telephone call to Germany or somewhere and aeroplane will take it to you and send the parts to you the next day. All these will change with 3D printing. You don't have to have stocks, you need it, you just put in the software into the computer and start making all the parts. Yeah? The entire logistic industry in Singapore can be chartered. Yeah? And I would say even the manufacturing activities that India would like to do with regard to this Made in India campaign. This is very serious. And we need to start thinking and preparing our population for this kind of development. So with the intensive level of technological skills and a mindset for digitization, which Indians are famous for, I think we can do a lot of things together. And in that process, we also develop the necessary skilling, as Mr. Banerjee said, in areas that will benefit both Singapore and India. The fundamental point about geopolitics is that, geoeconomics is that ASEAN is open to the world. We cannot go back to the old days. All our ASEAN countries are now dependent on exports and trade. So no matter what the rest of the world say about globalization and all that, the reality is that we cannot turn the clock back in ASEAN countries. So this is your wonderful best friend for India in terms of moving into keeping your promotion of trade and reaching out to the world market. I think the ASEAN countries will have to continue their respective reform of domestic economy, integrate the ASEAN 10 economy together, and maintain this globalization instinct that we have now cultivated in all our ASEAN countries. And so it's good for India, and it's useful for us in the coming months to see what can we do together. The last point I want to make is that Singapore has been quite good with testing certain ideas. We are not afraid to innovate, and in many cases in governance and in the public sector, we think of a problem and the solution, and we implement some of these quite quickly because we are small and easy to do so. India has its own dynamics, but it's always useful to see what has happened in Singapore in a particular setup, particular situation, and see how we can adapt that for the Indian subcontinent, and perhaps we can do certain things that will benefit both the population in India and Singapore. Mr. Chairman, I think I'll stop here for now. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ambassador Pillai, for inviting me to this. Firstly, I want to share some, do some context setting, and then I want to get into the possibilities and opportunities that exist for us. Firstly, as some remarks were made at the introduction, Singapore is home to probably the largest concentration of professional Indian diaspora. The IIM alumni community is almost 2,000, IIT is about 3,500. Large number of chartered accountants and so on. Now, the real context I want to set here is that that's something evolutionary. It was not something that the professional Indians pushed for it, or the Singapore government pushed for it, or whatever. 35 years ago when I came, there were 4 IIM alums here, but in the last 10, 15 years, it's taken a large amount of growth. But that's historical. So we are at a moment here where that diaspora can seize the moment and in this changing landscape get more proactive and play a deeper and bigger role. So that's one context. The other is when I look at the India-Singapore economic scenario, and Ambassador Pillai mentioned part of it. So there are, in terms of Singapore companies going into India, it is the bigger, the better known names, but when it comes to a more vibrant, more pervasive, more deeper kind of engagement, the SME presence is by exceptions rather than by rule. And also, a lot of those have sort of written on the coattails of G2G sort of engagements. So there is an opportunity and there is an imperative too, because if you look at the Committee on Future Economy recommendations, so for the SMEs in Singapore to grow, they really have no choice but to grow beyond the boundaries of Singapore. And India as a huge economy offers the opportunity. So that's another opportunity statement that I want to make. The third observation that I want to make is that there have been pockets of engagement. So the examples were given in terms of, let us say, skills development, so therefore, and so on and so forth, smart city, maybe Amravati and so on. But in terms of creating something that is scalable, sustainable and replicable, these are pockets of success, and there is an opportunity for us to take it towards a platform that can result in deeper engagement. So let me pull all of those things together. So firstly, another observation. In terms of delegations coming from India into Singapore, big, small, large organization, whatever, it is pretty much every other week something or the other is here. Number of MOUs get discussed, signed and so on. If collectively those MOUs went into a decent percentage of tangible outcomes, I think that would have made a significant difference, maybe even to the GDP growth. But I'm not getting into statistics here. The point I'm trying to make is we need to get into much more action-oriented, outcome-oriented approach to the engagement process that we have. The excitement building, the awareness building, the courtship process and so on, that is fine. Here is an opportunity for us to go deeper. There are some other things where we, I think, can move beyond stereotypes. And by stereotypes, I mean, let's say smart city. Obviously, Singapore has smart nation. So the traditional belief is, therefore, the best fit is smart city projects in India. But if you break down the components of what goes into a smart nation, why can't it be relevant for the non-urban tier 2, tier 3, even the rural markets of India? Why should it be that just because Singapore is an urban economy, the focus, even for SMEs, we only tout and tour them around the urban markets in India? Water was talked about. Now, in terms of creating sustainability of water, if you just solve the urban part of it in India, that's probably not going to be sufficient. Now, it's entirely possible for the engagement to get into areas where it is the Indian insights of the rural market, the basic technology innovation from here, creating disruption in the cost envelope, and it can become the role model for the world as well. Even in terms of innovation, it is not necessary that it is a one-way flow. FinTech got talked about. In some other areas, the work that is emerging out of India today in the payment space perhaps is world-class, and those stacks and those capabilities, Singapore could be a place and a platform from which to launch world-class packaging of that. So the key point I want to make is there is an opportunity here for us to collectively and individually focus on any engagements that we do. Let's really focus on what the action plan is, what the outcomes are that we are trying to derive from that, focus on fewer initiatives and take them to success, and then bootstrap those versus just a plethora of ideas that get discussed. And I think the fundamental basis for that is to create scalability and sustainability of whatever outcomes that we're deriving versus just trying to get on to one project at a time. I'll stop with that.
Thank you. I think several good ideas have been discussed, and I think it is generally agreed there are opportunities available. There is a good fit between India and Singapore, and there is enough talent and even money if possible. But why hasn't it happened? I think maybe that's a question that I would like to throw into the house and ask for your opinion. You see, in most cases, I've been at this game for a long time. I've dealt with India for a long time. And I've received many a delegation from India. The Singapore SMEs who go to India are bogged down by what I may call the visual impact. What they see is something that makes them frightened. Oh, this is, and a young officer who's sent to evaluate something comes back with the impression, if I say this is great, I will be posted there, and I don't want that. I mean, this is a small example, but there's so many of these stories about why things cannot do. And then there's ease of doing business and things like that. On the Indian side, when they come here, you have very carefully choreographed visits. You see the ministers, you see the chambers, you go and have a few dinners, and you go back. I'm sorry, I'm being rather blunt, but you do not get into meet the SMEs. The SME guy may not come for the SBF. You have to, if I ask the core group, how many of you have actually gone in to look at the possibility of investing together with the Singapore SME? I don't think there will be many. But unless you change your methodology, you come back to look at, okay, you talk about smart cities. Yes, Singapore is there. Who will be your partners in smart cities? It's the good, dependable, government-linked companies. The others may not have the know-how for this. So, if you are looking at SME participation, and some of them are very successful, don't be frightened by, what Kenyong said, the new measures are for ASEAN. No, it is for, if ASEAN, I think the first thrust for Singapore is of course ASEAN. But there are many more suitors there, and there are people willing to put a lot of money. And I'm not sure in that game, you can be the winner. But if you look at the small industries, SMEs in Singapore, there are quite a few gems there which you can actually cultivate and do things together, maybe in third markets as well. So I would like to the House to look at why are we not getting results while we have so many opportunities and so much of friendship and everything else. Maybe, oh sorry, yeah, yes. Once, I think after Professor Mitra has spoken, Professor Mitra is the director of ISAS, and he's the one who's going to give you the more philosophical, academic angle to this whole discussion. Professor Mitra, I'm sorry. You see, normally you are the one to say thank yous.
Chairman, I will say thank you to start with for asking me to be part of this panel. I'm a political scientist by training, and I've been here now for 2 years and learned a lot. Our most esteemed visitors from the CII and distinguished members of the Singapore Diplomatic Corps, NUS academic community, our two ministries, Ministry of Trade and Industry and Foreign Affairs, who support us, and Singapore business and industry, ladies and gentlemen. The chairman has already outlined my job. My job is to make ISAS relevant to people such as yourselves. This is our mandate, to be a hub to connect South Asia, contemporary South Asia and Singapore. And that job will not be done if people like yourselves didn't come here, if people like yourselves didn't think us worthy of your time to come here. And our job is to make ourselves relevant, and this is exactly what the challenge that the chairman has accepted on behalf of ISAS from all of you. Allow me to comment on 4 points that have emerged. I'll be very brief. First and foremost, let me react to the statement made by President Mr. Naushad Forbes about what ISAS can do about India's views broadcast to this part of the world. I mean, when you open the television and you find an unruly member of the Tamil Nadu Assembly sitting on the seat of the chair of the speaker, what is the message that you get? Has Tamil Nadu closed for business? Is India still working? This is where, ladies and gentlemen, ISAS works as a clearing house. Now, what is a clearing house? A clearing house is an agency which transforms multiple currencies into a single currency. ISAS is what anthropologists call a culture broker. The Singapore businessman watching Tamil Nadu, because these things are broadcast now, assembly proceedings, or for that matter, watching something about Srinagar, watching endless crowds, would wonder, is India still open for business? This is where ISAS takes business seriously enough to look underneath business and look at institutions and processes and number of India's civil society organizations who make India work. Or in other words, don't be taken in by the images that come, because such things are unthinkable in Singapore. It doesn't mean India is not working. India takes democracy seriously enough to think of interrupting the parliamentary proceedings, the high seat of democracy, also as part of democracy. After all, if you don't do that, what do the kids in your own constituency think? You don't even have a chance to speak in the assembly. Well, make a nuisance of yourself. This is the front. One has to look underneath, and this is what ISAS does. ISAS looks deeply at the causality and the process of India's economy and politics and shows how, in spite of these superficial noises that come out, India is still working. The second point I got from Mr. Chandrajit Banerjee. You have made excellent comments on the budget, and you have shown how the government of India is putting together a package a bit like Singapore now, coping with the challenges, investing when investment is necessary, and keeping the economy inclusive. How one can balance all these things. But in so saying, we have tossed a challenge, which is that of partnership. What comes, well, after Lucas came Actist, what comes after Actist? After Actist comes actually going to the East and acting there. So this is exactly what ISAS is doing. Under the leadership of our chairman, we are going to Bangladesh. I know that you have been there already. It's a net. We are also going to Bangladesh with the support of our distinguished member, Ambassador Chaudhary, who was once Bangladesh's and foreign minister. And ISAS makes it a business to have not only academics, but distinguished people from the South Asian governments who helped us connect not only to the business and industry of Bangladesh, but also to the academia, to the government as a whole, and to the civil society. It's this kind of initiative which brings ISAS new energy and produces what we call partnership. We have intention of doing something similar also to Sri Lanka, eventually to India, but this is where ISAS can be a good partner for CII in terms of seeking partnership, thinking about the world of tomorrow, where, I mean, you think of India, politically, you go to Delhi, commercially, you go to Mumbai, industrially, you go to the south, half of the east, which is where a lot of potential is trapped. Now, ISAS is thinking about a new east with Bangladesh as the fulcrum, which is giving connectivity to 7 northeastern states which are landlocked, and which is opening up, once the Rohingya issue is sorted out, to Myanmar, and beyond that to all of Southeast Asia. As the President said, and as Ambassador Ong Keng Yong reminded us, Asia is not close to India. And this kind of connectivity is coming, and ISAS is trying to be a little ahead of the curve, which is where the third point I take up from the chairman. He talks about deeper collaboration. Look, Singapore scores very high on ease of doing business. Singlish is understood all over. So is English. You don't need ISAS to have connectivity. So where does ISAS come in? ISAS comes in at the level of deeper collaboration. A deeper collaboration is not just one-part collaboration, but sustainable collaboration. That's where the knowledge of institutions knowledge of governance of Singapore and of India comes in. And that's where we can certainly give a hand. The only point where I'll take issue with my own chairman is the word outsiders. Singapore is an island. ISAS is not an island inside an island. Thanks to the chairman, there is nobody in Singapore who says no to ISAS when we need them. For Indian Ocean, we work directly with the RSIS. When we need media, we have Ravi Bellu. When we have the IIT and high-level technicians, we have Sanjay, a member of our steering committee for the signature event of ISAS, which is the International South Asia Diaspora Convention, again an initiative of the chairman. This is why ISAS is not just ISAS, ISAS is a part of Singapore Incorporated. You want someone, come to us, we'll make that available. The fourth point comes from me, but it's addressed to Sanjay. Look, Singapore is getting ready for the difficult times to come, when there will be trade blockades, when nationalism will overcome economic rationale. What will Singapore do? First and foremost, never mind what kind of oil you will have, there will always be need for cutting-edge technology. So Singapore is going heavily into robotics. And Singapore knows there will be unemployment, and Singapore is providing for retraining, new skills training. And that is where India has to also act. And who is better placed than the CII to think in terms of investing in cutting-edge technology, and that's what NUS is here for, and we are a part of NUS. So those are some of the questions. The other questions are new opportunities. The Chinese put it very nicely, a problem can be an opportunity. So what opportunity does Brexit and Trump offer to the world of tomorrow? What opportunities does India offer in terms of beyond smart cities, the second-tier cities, where before other people go, Singapore can be present? These are the issues that should come up in the conversation. I don't want to take it any further, except to say that China. I've written a couple of articles on China. Trade always, rival sometimes. Now I'm thinking about the patterns of trade. Does it make sense for India to give away or sell our mine ore in order to import their shoes, their firecrackers, even Ganesh idols made in China? That's the point President Forbes has made. What can India do to cope with this pattern of trade? In the old days, it used to be called the colonial pattern of trade. And that's where CIA has to do some primary thinking. And ISAS would be more than happy to collaborate, because we have 8 major workshops planned. One of them is on China and South Asia, which Ambassador Chaudhary has organized. We will be, intellectually speaking, very, very happy to have your collaboration and your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Mitra. We can now move to the House. Questions, comments? There's one gentleman at the back. Can you introduce yourself and give your comments or questions?
Good morning, all the panelists for the insightful speech. I am William from I am ISAS alumni and Ambassador Han is our chairman. So I have 2 questions for President Noshin Hobbies. Yeah. So first question is digitization, online shopping, and e-commerce changes or work rapidly. Is there any impact in CRI's members company? Second question. Is there any programs that CRI, specific programs CRI have to facilitate Singapore's SME to enter into Indian market, or to a large extent to all Southeast Asia SMEs? Thank you.
Do you want to do one by one? Do you want to how will you
Sometimes when you take together, you lose some. Then you lose some. So let's look at how things are, and then
Sure.
Yeah.
So I'll make a quick comment, and then I'll ask Charity to add as well, because I think specifically both questions relate to CII's work in different areas, and he has much greater depth of understanding of CII's work. I'll start with the second question. If you look at CII today, we have 8,000 direct members. Out of the 8,000 direct members, over half are actually SMEs. If you look though at the indirect membership of CII, we have about 200,000 indirect members who belong to CII through various trade associations. And the great bulk of those, I don't know what the proportion is, but I would guess over 90% of those 200,000 would be SMEs. So we're in a very good position to actually connect SMEs with SMEs. And I think to actually come back to the issue that you raised, Ambassador, I think the challenge for any SME collaborations around the world, this is true for Singapore, but it's true for any two countries, is that SMEs, because they are by nature SMEs that have limited bandwidth, do not tend to have those international connections. So it's a challenge everywhere. And how do you actually bring them together? I think the only way you can do it is if you do it sectorally. So you actually do sector to sector, so engineering companies with engineering companies, or chemical companies with chemical companies. And I think then you have the potential for greater interaction. And and the possibility of some collaborations emerging. For the last, I think now, we've been running an MSME summit in India for many years. And for the last, I think, 2 years, the MSME summit has had a major international component. And we have partner countries, which for each of the summits, and 2, 3, 4 partner countries for each summit. And as a result of those summits, we've had some rather interesting things happen. We started by talking about policy, and we had trade ministers from those countries and so on. But what's actually ended up happening on the ground is that those trade ministers have come together with SME delegations. The SME delegations have met Indian companies at the summit. And we now have a few joint ventures that have started up in India and in those countries to actually start spreading SME operations beyond their own shores. It's been a very interesting outcome of this face-to-face contact. So I think we should look at doing just that, and maybe have Singapore as a partner country for the next SME summit, where we can then have some significant collaboration. On your first question on digitization, we have several initiatives in CI where we're working together with the government. I'll ask Charity if you'd like to add something on that, but I think we can talk about some of the things.
Okay, thank you. A couple of points. Number one, when we talk about this entire piece of SMEs, and we talk about matchmaking, we need to be a little careful and cognizant of the fact that when we define SMEs in India, and the SMEs of India and the SMEs of Singapore may not be the right comparison, the right. So even if this happens in CII, when we are working with, say for instance, when we are taking help from Germany or from any other countries, the definition of SMEs and the sizes of SMEs and the content of SMEs are quite different. So we need to be very careful in the matchmaking when we are doing between Singaporean SMEs and companies in India. So it need not necessarily have to be with Indian SME, but it could be a larger than the medium company or a medium company. So we need to be very careful as to how we are working on it. Number one. Number two, we are very much cognizant of the fact that the competitiveness of SMEs are extremely important in India. So we have a center of excellence called the Center for Competitiveness, which only focuses on how do we make Indian SMEs competitive. And we work in geographical as well as sectoral clusters. We have about a couple of 100 clusters at this point in time in the country, where we are trying to make these SMEs smart. Smart in terms of maybe for exports, for logistics management, for inventory management, for what have you. We have a number of areas where we are quality, energy, etc., efficiency, that we work on them, and the program varies depending on how much of time we need to spend on that cluster. Now that is where we are actually engaging some countries. I mentioned Germany earlier because the Mittelstand experience of German companies have been very important to India, and there we get something called SES, a Senior Expert Services, which is where we get some very mature German companies who come and spend time with Indian SMEs, and thereafter the connect becomes much easier. So we probably need to think of some sort of programs of these kinds where we can look at matchmaking and looking at how we can learn from another country. The last point which President mentioned about was this entire issue of digitalization. Now, what's happened, because the way the things are going to be, Indian SMEs will have to operate on a completely different way. We not only have this issue of digitization, but we also are going to see many reforms which are like, say, for instance, the GST, which is going to come in, which is going to affect a large number of the small and medium enterprise, the way they work. This entire issue of demonetization, etc. There has been a strong sort of a challenge which the Indian SMEs have been faced with. So there are programs and that we have from within CII where we reach out to through the different associations that was mentioned, sectoral associations and geographical associations. We meet through these associations, we see how Indian SMEs can change with the changing times in India. And one big agenda of ours is to globalize Indian SMEs. And we know that we are not comparatively with many countries, we are at different places. So we are very careful in calibrating that, and we need to, therefore, when we talk about this program of exchange between Indian SMEs, between Singaporean SMEs and India, we need to calibrate that and see the different set of levels and see how we can make this connectivity successful.
Thank you. Ambassador.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a couple of quick points. I think while size is a factor that we need to bear in mind, I must also say that in the Singapore and ASEAN context, the SME range from a mom and pop operation to a company with maybe $50 to $100 million capitalization. So it is something that I think the implementing agencies involved have to try to work on and get the matchmake and get the people together. And secondly, one of the most interesting things in the ASEAN SME picture is that more and more SMEs are now using IT and going into the digitalized world. Because number one, they see that as a way to cut through bureaucracy and get access to some assistance program for finance or for participating in global trade fair or what have you. Number two, more importantly, it is also because every SME in the ASEAN region or in Singapore also faces this issue of getting enough skilled workers or employees. So they find that it's easier to rely on IT and digitization. So you see this happening in Indonesia, in Thailand, yeah, and actually in the case of the ASEAN countries, more and more of them are into digitized arrangement as they develop their business either in goods or in services. And that's the reason why the Monetary Authority of Singapore's this finance package is quite important, quite useful. And it's not meant to be just for ASEAN market, but what we should do is to see how Singaporean company, together with Indian company, can get into a partnership to assess such kind of useful incentives to do more as SME, Singapore, India, and ASEAN SMEs. The other point I wanted to make is that the SME in ASEAN countries are also excited about going into a country like India. But as the chairman said, the visual impact is always the most weighty kind of situation. But the report these days I get from SME is that there are much improved situation. For example, going into the airport, Indian airport, they don't feel intimidated anymore. Yeah, it's more welcoming. Yeah. Secondly, they found that again through this digitized and IT setting, they could actually get to know the Indian SME partner well before they actually go in bidding for the first time. So they can get the e-governance website, understand what is going on, and then they already have a notion of what to say, what to match. So it is good. The important thing therefore is that we have to make sure that information about all the SMEs, whether in India or Singapore or ASEAN, must be more available onto the website. And, no matter what we do, we must try to create more such information onto the cyber arena so that people can find a matching together. Thank you.
Thank you, Yong. Yes?
My name is Hong Trust, teaching at some places. Small comment, a few questions. I'm not sure what to say. I was told that 2 times when someone is transferred to India, they try twice. Once when they get transferred there, oh, where am I landing myself? Like, really back. The second time, when it is time for them to leave India, go back to their home, by then they have loved the place and it had become home, second home already, and time for them to go back. And that's the second time they tried. So anyway, that's what I have heard. So not once, twice they tried. I thought this conference, this year interactive session was like a fresh dose of oxygen. Coming at a time when the whole Western market is closing up, threatening to close down, and here we are talking about India, 60% of trade GDP ratio, unheard of when you look at India's history. The trade is so open, seeing the market abroad. I think Asian, we talk of 21st century, Asian century. This is the only way you can open and trade among the South Asian countries. And trade with the Latin, trade with African, because that window should not be closed, right? That's exactly what we're talking. Now, there's an Indian role in Asia, LKY said, I think Ravi, I read your books, there are so many good things there. Asia will submerge if India does not emerge. LKY, long before. And goes of tone. India is a giant that has not realized its potential, its own potential. In Georgia, we took early bid on India and we were not wrong, we were justified. So India. Now, my only question is perhaps some of the information that the local investor may like to know, or even you may like to know from the government, like this. If DBS has indicated its interest to go there, but then in the financial sector, 40% of the lending is targeted for preferred lending, right? So to this sector, to that sector, 40%, and it's a huge thing. But of course, SME is a big part of that too. So that I thought they may like to know whether it is not like in a constrained environment. Secondly, labor rigidity. Extremely impossible. It is easy to go, impossible to get out. You can't even fire even if you are bankrupt. And third, land acquisition. It's a historical problem. There are so many postcodes, they all left out. And this equity market is very small. Now, this Goldman Sachs left, Deutsche Bank left, Royal Bank of Scotland is talking about leaving. Why is that? Because some of these things were, I'm sure you would like to know from the government, and I'm sure the potential investor in Singapore would also like to know. Because without India, no way. My last suggestion for Indian delegation is, if India plays such a big role, I think the topic should be not India vis-a-vis Southeast Asia, not India vis-a-vis ASEAN, but South Asia vis-a-vis, because South Asia is India. 85% of South is you. So instead of just India, it looks good on India also. South Asia, Southeast Asia. After all, what LKY realized long ago, World Bank is now saying it is the age of South Asia. So I hope from your side that will be also presented on that. Thank you very much.
Don, can you do something about the aircon? Yeah, sure.
Yeah. So you mentioned all the, when people talk about what India's agenda for reform in the next in the next 10 years has to be around factor markets, and indeed has to be around markets for land and labor, most certainly, and then the financial sector is separate piece. So let me deal with each of those very quickly. On land, if you're in a large a large land requiring project like POSCO, there are issues. A large infrastructure project, there are issues. But for your average manufacturing company, there are no issues. Because for your average manufacturing company, there are an abundance of states that have different land banks that have been put together and where they make land available to companies. So it's not an issue and not a constraint. If you want land free, it'll be an issue, but you shouldn't, right? I mean, I think as industry, none of us should actually expect anything free. We should expect to pay for whatever we require as a part of our own investment in the project. And I think as long as we're willing to do that, the land is actually available for general industrial purposes in abundance and in many states in the country. When it comes to labor, okay. So also on the infrastructure projects, one of the major changes that's currently underway are to provide for PPP projects. One of the key constraints on PPP projects that got them stuck at different points in time was clearances subsequent to the launch of the project, where the clearances were in the scope of the developer. Now, a major change that's been made in policy for PPPs is that the PPP project timeline begins when the government hands over the actual clearances on the project. So you have that, which is a much more productive, sensible thing, because the clearances are usually within the scope of the state and not within the scope of the developer to deliver on the ground. But it would then otherwise cause lots of delays. And I think that's a major change in policy, and we have to still see the benefits of start flowing as PPP projects start being initiated under this new regime and this new policy. On the labor side, I'll just make a comment. On the labor side, this government started, when it first came to power, it actually talked about labor reform for the first time in 25 years. It made a few small changes that were very useful. For example, in the Apprenticeship Act, which made it a much more flexible, liberal apprenticeship regime for the country for training.
100 to 300.
The 100 to 300 has happened. So when that was proposed, there was a lot of opposition, including from within the BJP itself. So they held back on the change. And they then said that, look, we will leave. Under India's constitution, it's a concurrent subject, meaning it's both a federal issue and a state issue. And they said that the actual notifications are issued by the state government. So they said, let the state government actually bring about its own labor reforms. We encourage them to bring about their labor reforms, and we as the central government will recognize them and approve them. And several state governments, about 5 state governments to date, have initiated useful labor reforms, specifically the ceiling of 100 to 300 in terms of closing companies, but also very useful labor reforms in terms of flexible work hours, what you need to do for different categories of employees, and so on. There's still a lot of work that needs to be done on the labor reform side, without question. Okay. Yeah. So one of the most productive changes that was made was, where does labor reform matter? Labor reform doesn't matter it doesn't matter so much for an engineering company like the one that Sanjay, the companies that Sanjay and I run. Yeah. It matters to companies that do labor-intensive manufacturing. So it matters to a garment company. So, for example, in the last year, there was a new textile and apparel policy, a garments, if you like, in apparels and made-up policy. That for the apparels and made-up sectors, they initiated something called fixed-term employment, where you can employ people for a certain number of years, and you can re-employ them at the end of that time. And there's an incentive where the state takes care of the provident fund contribution of the employer for the first 3 years, as an incentive to create formal sector employment. And that which has started for the apparel and made-up sector, has now been extended in the last budget to the leather and footwear sector. And what we've recommended in CII is that that same policy of fixed-term employment be extended more generally across all sectors, because it actually addresses the key requirement in labor.
Can I just add a little bit of a practitioner's view on land? First thing one must realize about India, every problem has a solution. It's up to you to look for it, up to you to have the patience, the determination to find a solution. And you will find it. There are many creative people in India who will advise you what can be done within legal framework. Now, on land, some of the states, what Naushad said is true. There are schemes that you can get. But many a time you have to buy from private sector. And most of this land is agricultural land. So there is a change of use, change of land use, CLU, which is a real headache. And that's where they catch you, in a very difficult situation. But we found a solution. Our requirements were not very large, few hundred acres here and there. But you tell the seller to get all the permits necessary, and you ask him to quote you a price based on that. If you think you can buy, and then you can send your clerk to sit outside somebody's office for days and days and days, it will take, more than my lifetime. But the owner, the guy who wants to sell it at a profit, and he knows that you're a good buyer, you're a foreign fellow, you'll pay, he will do whatever is necessary to make sure that change of land use takes place. And we have never had a problem, number one. On labor, what you said is true. I started life in the university as one of the very fiery socialists. Treatment of labor was a major item for me. But when I became a businessman and went to India, I said, I will do what the Roman, you do what is required in Rome, So what do? We don't employ too many people, few hundred drivers, maybe 400 or 500 drivers, because we have got trailers, we have got cold chain, refrigerated vehicles, all these need drivers. And these guys can be very difficult, they are quite tough guys. So what we do is, we approach a company, a labor supplying company, say, I want 500 drivers, or go to 2 or 3 of them and say, I want 100, 150. They make sure that these guys report on time, they travel on time, they don't have breakfast while they are on your payroll. No. They have very harsh methods of dealing with them, but they are found it. And it works well for me. So while my socialist upbringing rebels against it, I said, at the end of the day, I've got to make some money for my shareholders. So it works. So never be despondent because something has gone wrong or something is taking time. Think about it and you'll find a solution. Yes. Yeah. Sorry, the panel is taking one.
Just extrapolating from what Ambassador Pillai said, I think we can look at the whole scenario as a huge set of problems that exist in India, or you can look at it from a businessman's point of view. And the example is Ambassador Pillai himself. He went into India when things were probably not even anywhere close to what it used to be. So the point I'm making is, if one waits for perfection for India to be a Singapore, then the competitive landscape also would have changed. So businessmen go in because they see an opportunity to make money. So in the midst of all those challenges, how can we make it easier and not necessarily easy is the key thing. And also to learn from examples like this one, that despite the challenges, what are the ways to get there within the legal framework, of course, and not falling into the trap of the jugaad guys that will come your way in India. So the key point here is, if you see that there is an opportunity, a good businessman will go there, and then maybe it is organizations like CII, diaspora and so on can help identify the right set of partners, maybe linkages with the large corporates and so on, but not wait for the ports to be perfect, for the roads to be perfect, and the culture shock or whatever to be eliminated, because then you will wait forever.
Thank you. I'm sure I have only 5 more minutes, but let's start.
Rajan Navani from Jetline. Always, Ambassador Gopi, always, it always amazes me with the refreshing way in which you continue to sustain this whole India-Singapore, next opportunity over all these years. And, no, absolutely, no, it renews the energy, and of course with people like Kumar and, looking at it, I think over the years, a lot has been achieved, but I think very little has been highlighted. I think we keep looking at all the problems that exist in the relationship, in the successes, but I think a large part of the successes have happened at individual company to company level, and that has actually transformed this partnership very, very significantly. I think it's time that we really, took some of those really large changes that have worked between the two countries, really, magnify that impact that it has had, amplify that, share that communication, share that knowledge. And particularly at a time like this, when the double tax treaty is, the tax treaty is being challenged, and actually start a new conversation on around the same facts that, have been discussed, how India and Singapore together can actually look at, larger agendas of the world. I think if we look at China, really what changed was when the medium-sized companies became large companies. You get 100 or 200 of those happening, I think the whole strength of the country emerges. And I think India is really at that point, and therefore the conversation around SMEs and I think even Naushad and CII is very, very strong looking at how you create the Indian multinational, right? How do you take medium-sized companies and really make them globally large? And maybe that's where the opportunity also lies, by showcasing some great stories that have happened and both ways, Indian companies accessing the world through Singapore talent, Singapore playing role with capital and others to actually make that change happen. And I definitely feel that the positive sentiment might really be the discussion over the next 6-8 months, to kind of take this forward. Just wanted to leave that as a thought. Thank you.
One more question, I think possible. Jordan?
Yes.
Yes. Ravi, you want to say something?
But I'll just make a brief comment, picking up on one remark that you made and one remark that Professor Mitra made. The SME issue and the culture issue that you also highlighted, they tend to get overwhelmed physically, mentally, in every which way. And if I link that up with what Professor Mitra said about why do we want big smart cities, why don't we do smaller smart cities? I think this is where the confluence of an idea can emerge. And in CII, we've been propagating a kind of a convoy system where you have one consortium leader. Because it's impossible for a small SME to battle all the people you know very well. But if he comes in a convoy where the consortium provides every product and service required, let's say for a small habitat, not a gigantic one, it can work, and it is working. Now in CII we've had consortia led by Siemens from Germany, as an example, Hitachi from Japan. And then what happens is it is Siemens which does all the bull work. So they've been in India for a long time, they know their way around. And it is after that KFW joins them and the government kicks in. With Hitachi it is JBEC. So this is a model that we are trying to develop. We succeeded in one small town in Andhra Pradesh with full cabinet approval. And that's the model we feel is very replicable. Now, when you talk about your SMEs, they have every part of technology that we require to make a habitat more, a higher quality of life. Let's put that as the index and nothing else. And which plays to the demographics of that habitat. You have everything, but I can't see
a small company here going to a small municipal corporation in India, anywhere, forget Andhra, and succeeding. So if you could, amongst your various initiatives, look at who can be a corporate leader representing Singapore, who carries with him all the array of services, including, of course, IT. I mean, I think of IT over smartness in the smart city. So you bring the whole gang along in a convoy and you put in the money we're talking about behind that, you could probably get a very good bang for your buck. You want to leave the thought with you, because this is happening in India. It's happened already in one case. It's not a big case. But Siemens has partnered with Shapoorji Pallonji. Because almost any city to be modernized, construction plays a very large part. The technology potentially plays a smaller part, although in value add will be similar.
Thank you. Would you like to have one last word before I close the meeting?
I'll only say thank you very much, Ambassador, for hosting us here. It's as I said, when we started, it's always a pleasure to be in Singapore. Singapore is one of these societies that not only does everything work as a country, right? Everything. I mean, but Singapore is known also for its social engineering, for its ability to create not just an economic future, but to articulate a clear social future and then to work towards creating that social future in a very imaginative public policy way. And indeed, as you referred to innovation in government, and I think the Singapore government has been a striking example of very powerful fundamental innovation that has been brought to bear in a very effective and successful way to change society over time. There was one question I didn't respond to, which was the question on financial sector lending. And I was holding back a little, which is, that while you do have targeted lending, you gave the example of DBS. My understanding is that DBS wasn't the original title Development Bank of Singapore.
Yeah.
And I believe that as Development Bank of Singapore, its first 20 years involved very significant targeted lending within Singapore, where it needed to lend especially to all the GLCs and to support the growth and expansion of GLCs. So targeted lending should not be a strange being to DBS. I think it's part of its history. So in terms of so I mean, I'm just saying that that these are sometimes what we see is which is where the concluding point is. Sometimes we see India as being something that's happening in India as being exceptional to India, but it's perhaps not. It's perhaps representative of things that happen in many other places too. And indeed, to come back to the same point again about India, that you need to look at the fundamentals and look at what's actually happening on the ground. And if you look at what's happening on the ground, the fundamentals of a consumption-driven growth boom, of 60%, over 60% of India's GDP growth coming from consumption, makes us a very resilient growth story. A growth story that's going to be around for 30 years. And 30 years, regardless of how quickly or slowly particular individual policies move on the ground. The challenge is going to be not India growing at 6, 7, even 8%. The challenge is how do we grow at 9 or 10? And to get to 9 or 10, then you need that real momentum on the reform side. Growing at 6, 7, 8 is going to be a reflection of India's own essential strengths and growth dynamics. That's right there. Thank you. Well, thank you.
My present duty now to say thank you to our visitors and also to the panelists from Singapore for having a very interesting morning. Every year whenever CII comes, we have these meetings and they are very fruitful, at least from my point of view. And I think we hope we'll continue the interaction with CII. And whatever little that we can do, I think Prof. Mitra in his presentation had mentioned, what are the areas that ISAS can be involved in. We are a think tank, we are a research institute, and there are many things that we get involved in which doesn't fall into any of this. For instance, we had a reading of poetry by Bangladeshi construction workers, and that was a full house. More than 200-300 people turned up, and it was fantastic. We felt good about it, even though it's not within our mandate. Creeping out of the mandate is something that I do fairly well, because it's not, if you are a think tank, you must think of many, many things, not what you have been told that you look at the economic data and that's what you think. But I'm very happy to have this opportunity to interact with CII. We look forward to this thing. I want to leave you with one photograph that somebody sent to me. It's a totally overloaded pickup truck, with all sorts of things on it. And the top caption says, Toda Arches Karna. And then the fellow right at the bottom. This is this is the concept that allows 104 satellites to come under one rocket. So that is what India is. So I think whether you like it, you don't like it, if I look at it on a day-to-day basis, I see no progress. But I look at it from the time I've been there 20 years ago to now, amazing progress. So that's the way to look at it. So I hope all this will mean something to some of my Singapore friends, and let's see how we take it forward. Thank you once again. I have some hope.